Welcome to the Success Ascent. My name is Pat Mancuso, and I'm excited that you're here today. We have an incredibly talented individual that I know that you're going to enjoy by the name of Nikki Ubaldini. Now, Nikki and her husband Gary own multiple business ventures out of Tampa, Florida. Nikki's session is so powerful that we've decided to divide it up into two parts because there's so much content. Let me give you just a couple of tidbits right now. Nikki shared with us, she says, the goal is always to learn and take away one idea from a seminar, from a book to implement in the next 7 to 10 business days to take your business to the next level. She also shared that tenacity is a skill and it's important to keep auditioning for your next opportunity. So let's get on to the ascent, the Success Ascent. Welcome today to our next episode of the Success Ascent podcast. My name is Pat Mancuso. I'm the creator and the host of the Success Ascent podcast, and I am excited and grateful today to have an individual who not only I've had the opportunity to work with for a number of years, is an amazing business owner, entrepreneur, strong woman in her own right, and she's going to share a number of things with us today about success, some struggles she's gone through. Nikki Ubaldini is the owner of the Ubaldini Group, and as a business owner, owns a number of businesses, entrepreneurial ventures. She'll talk a little bit about that, and I know we're going to have some amazing discussions today from Nikki. So, Nikki, welcome. We're excited to have you today.
Well, thank you very much. I'm excited to be here today.
So, Nikki, I mean, I've known you for a long time, and anybody in real estate obviously knows of you and who you are. Yet, talk about, just a little bit about Nikki Ubaldini and the Ubaldini Group and some of the ventures that you're into.
Okay. Well, I mean, how we got started was my husband and I got into real estate together. Many times people say it was them or their spouse got into it. But we got into it together. And we built a mega team, and we were selling 300 plus houses, and I was getting burned out. I felt like I'd hit the wall, and I said, how many more houses can we sell? And I feel like the hamster on the wheel, and there's got to be more to this. And not that I didn't enjoy the sales part, I felt that there needed to be more, or there could have been more, or more use of my talents. And that's when we got introduced to the company that I'm with currently, which is KW. And I started to realize that there was so much more than I could keep that business, and I could have other businesses. And I think that was where the mindset shift happened, is understanding that you can be good at more than one thing. And, and with proper leverage, you can be really great at more than one thing. And that was the aha moment for me, that the sales team, as we called it, the cash cow, it allowed us to look at other business opportunities and to hone our skills and to grow and to develop and become better business people. So we had always said we would never open a real estate company, because our experience had been everyone that we had been part of, they weren't really making a lot of money. And so we thought, well, we don't want to do that. Well, it's interesting because now we own 3, and we're looking at opening a 4th one. And so the answer is that we won't just open one real estate company now. We never thought we would open just one. So we changed our thought process, because when you get with the proper model and you have the proper systems and understanding of business in place, which we all understand, it's expense control and productivity driven, then you can really benefit from that opportunity and then multiply it more than once. So that's allowed us to grow those 3 market centers. And then we took those same principles, and we've grown 3 title companies. Forgive me, I just opened the 3rd one.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and we're getting ready to do the 4th one in the next couple of months. So there's always something going on, and that's been fun and exciting. But the number one thing, of course, is having the right people around me, and being surrounded by other really great leaders that are empire builders within my organization.
So I know you, and I want to have a little fun. What did you do before real estate?
Before real estate, I was in the entertainment business. My husband was a musician and I was a professional dancer. No, not a stripper. Let's get that off the table right now. I was actually a professionally trained dancer, and we did Broadway Vegas style reviews for large resorts. And we also did, those resorts would then take our show and promote them to other large organizations such like Mary Kay and the PC Party in Canada. And, you know, we did a lot of one night convention type things along with our 6 days a week that we did in our location of our resorts. So I was the choreographer, and we went to Canada. I was there for 3 years in Canada. And I was the choreographer there, and my husband was the musical director. So we pretty much founded the show, and when we left there, Shania Twain was discovered there, actually.
I love that. I love that. Well, there was a reason why I asked that, and it has to do with success. And obviously, I know a little bit about that background, and you were successful in that entertainment industry, and then you came into real estate. What skills, if you had to talk about some skills that helped foster that foundation for success that you brought from that industry to real estate, any jump out at you?
Yeah, it's the tenacity, I think, is number one. It's, you know, when you're in the entertainment business, there's a lot of auditions, there's a lot of rejection, there's a lot of risk of rejection.
Right.
And interesting, even when we were working 6 days a week at the resort in Canada, myself and my dancers, my crew, because I was the company manager, we would go to Toronto and audition just to keep our, what we would say, our chops up. You know, we would go and audition just to see if we could get another job if we wanted it. Nobody ever took the other jobs because our gig was pretty good.
Right.
But it was funny because we would separate ourselves in the line so we wouldn't go in together, and they would always pull us out and put us together. So we knew we had a thing that we looked really good together. But what I saw was that tenacity of, you can't have that fear. I mean, we all don't like to be rejected, but there was always that risk of being rejected. So you just take that skill with you into sales, because there's going to be no's. And when you get enough no's, you're going to get a yes. So
Right.
we just learned to just keep going and going and going. And it wasn't, I always looked at it as when I didn't get a job, it wasn't because I wasn't good at what I did. It was because I didn't fit what they needed. So that was my mindset. You know, I knew I was a good dancer. I knew that I was excellent at what I did because I worked hard at it and I studied for it. So when they told me no or rejected me, it wasn't because I wasn't good at what I did. It was because I didn't fit their model. So the same thing goes for when you do that with real estate. When somebody says no, it's not that they're rejecting you, it's that they're rejecting what you're offering to them at that time.
Right.
Maybe you're not a fit for them.
Makes
so
sense.
That's been my experience.
So they've said, I've heard it said, I've experienced it in my travels, one of the hardest things to do is to be an entrepreneur in real estate, because there's so many hats that we wear, so many skills we need to develop. Successful real estate agent, you had to hone those skills. So what did you do to drive to that 300 homes per year? Like, what skills were really important from an entrepreneurial perspective?
Well, first thing is, both myself and my husband are, I would say, education junkies. You know, we are always about how can we be better? How could we learn? So, and we always sought out who was, in our mind, the best at something. So when we first started in the industry, remember, we were still doing entertainment at night. Maybe you didn't realize that, for the first 5 years. So we literally would leave real estate. We have to be done by 6 o'clock because we'd have to be at our show by 8 o'clock. So we had to go home, shower, get prepared, and go to the show. So we had limited time to work during the day, and we worked until 1 o'clock in the morning. You know, we closed down and we would come back.
Sure.
And so we would get up early in the morning. So what we did was we always looked to say, well, who's doing what? Who's the best in the industry? Who is the #1 agent in our town? And we just started emulating everything they did. We just started, copying and just putting it into our business. And then when we hit their level of productivity, we went, okay, well, we know we can do more than this because we've reached this success. And so we started reaching out to outside trainers, and we got very plugged into a trainer by the name of Howard Brenton in Star Power. And he used to do interviews of top agents across the nation. And we would listen to these interviews every month and take a piece here and a piece there, and we implement it. So in that, along with the classes, we made a pact to ourselves that if we listened to what would be a podcast today, which it was a tape then, but we listened to a podcast or we went to a class, our goal was to always take one thing away and implement it into our business, just one. And always focus on what was that one thing that could take our business that A, was easy enough to implement in the next 7 to 14 days, and B, would really impact our business in a big way.
Right.
So we always found the people that we felt were the best at what they did, and we learned from them.
Yeah.
We asked questions, we shadowed them, we just, we found, and interestingly enough, Pat, they loved to do it.
Yeah.
They loved to share.
Yeah.
They were thrilled that you asked.
Well, and that organization I was a part of, and that, of course, is how I got exposed to you and some of the other pioneers in KW. And, and you said something which we all struggle with, and I'll share this as a coach and consultant to people listening. We go to events, we go to seminars, and we take pages and pages and pages of notes, and our brain gets overwhelmed as to where to start with that. And so I always share with people, there's a really simple exercise that you go back to what was March Madness. Well, of course, we didn't have it this year. And that is you put everything down on a page, and then you play a game with 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 4, etc. And there's always a winner to each game. And at the end, you'll get the one thing to do right now just by doing that. And you're right. If you implement just one of those things you take away from an event first, and then you go to the second one, your business will change overnight. So that doesn't surprise me. And boy, if you look at that organization and the people who came through that organization from all companies, just incredible talent. And so that getting back to having mentors, having coaches, and not reinventing the wheel, I think is a really important lesson.
Well, finding somebody's wins. It's funny. We had a broker at a company or two ago who said to us, he said to us one day, my aha about you and Gary and your ability to succeed is that you're not afraid to implement new things.
Yeah.
And that was something that we never really paid attention to. We just knew we wanted to
did it.
Yeah. And I think too many times we become paralyzed by, well, what should we do next? As opposed to just doing it. And okay, so if it doesn't work, so what? You take it out, and you didn't lose anything by trying something new.
Right.
But you also have to be willing to let something new have a chance to really develop. And that was another lesson that we had to learn. You couldn't make multiple changes. Like you couldn't add something and think in a month that it's going to make a huge difference and then change it. You had to at least give it 6 months to really see what it was going to do before you could take it out. So,
well, because I know you real well, that would be patience. Patience.
Not something that I have well. Patience, and I get bored easy. So it's funny because one of the biggest things I hear from agents today is, I'll say to them, well, why did you change that? Why did you change what was working? Well, because I got bored.
Right.
And, why do we fix what's not broken? Well, because we get bored. And that's really the silliest thing we could ever do. So yeah, you're right. Patience is not my virtue. And it was hard.
Yeah, not yet. Yeah. So you're building this business, 300 home sales. Life is probably pretty good. What was your next leap, right, was Region, right?
Right. So we got introduced to Gary Keller through our good friends, Linda and Jimmy McKissick, and we started going to meetings in Austin. And in fact, we were in his very first, what he called mega camp, which is his very first one he did. I think there was 27, 28 of us, most of which were from people other than his company. I think there might have been 6 or 7 Keller Williams agents there. And he just talked about the future of real estate and, where it was going, which gave us this enlightening idea of opportunity. I literally went there. I have to tell this quick story. I went there burned out. I did not want to go. In fact, I was going to get out of real estate and go sell jewelry, because I just was so tired of, the monotony. Right. And I went as a, my good friends begged me to go. And my husband teases me. He says, you started, with your arms crossed and your eyes in the back of your head. And within about 30 minutes, I was up on my knees, he said, and as he tells me, your pretty blue eyes came back to the front of your head. And it was like, I felt like I could see the light at the end of the tunnel, and it wasn't a train.
Right.
It was actually opportunity. And I was seeing the business through different eyes. I was seeing how I could take what I felt were some of my skills, which was, teaching, speaking, helping others, grow others, and utilize them in my business, in my practice, and make my business bigger and better. So what happened is then of course, Gary Keller invited us to join the company. It took us 2 years to make that decision. And I have to say we kicked ourselves because we looked up and we lost a lot of money because we were not focused in our business. But when we finally made the decision to go, we were all in. And then shortly thereafter, he asked us if we would take on the South Florida region for him, because we had been here, in Florida for a long time, and people knew us. We had had some success in Florida, especially in our previous company.
Right.
And that gave us an advantage in the sense that we had validity in his eyes. And so, yeah, we got to take on the region. Now, interesting, we didn't work on the region in the beginning. The first thing is we needed to open up our first office.
Right.
And that's a whole different skill set than being a salesman. And that was a lot of learning curve.
Yeah.
But it was fun. And we, there were not the same systems and tools that we have today in our company to do that. Remember, this was 22 years ago. And so it was difficult, but we did it because we're tenacious and we just followed what everybody else was doing. And it was fun. And so then about a year later, we started building the region. So that was a whole nother set of skills.
Well, so there's something that you said that I think applies to a lot of entrepreneurs, and obviously real estate agents, mortgage, brokers, title folks, any industry. There's an entrepreneurial mindset. However, we've never really been taught entrepreneurship. When you let's use real estate as an example, you get your license, and your license is to make sure, you don't commit malpractice on somebody. It has nothing to do with running a real estate business or being a business owner. And that's the piece that I think holds people back sometimes of taking advantage of opportunities or looking at advantage of opportunities. I mean, we had an opportunity to do the same thing in our area at that time, 3 years prior to us joining. And that was because I wasn't taught, that wasn't something at the time that I was taught to look at opportunities or to say, hey, you need to find $100,000. How could you find it? And we're like, and of course today, I could make 2 or 3 calls if I needed to find $1 million and do those investments and take advantage of those opportunities. And usually it comes back to fear. It's fear of that. And yet I know for you, although the fear is always there, because I think that tempers us in the decisions, you're not that person who lets that fear hold you back.
No, I don't. I'm told I'm a lot like my father, because I'm definitely not like my sisters. Or my mother. My father was an entrepreneur, was a salesman at heart. And he always ventured into new opportunities, sometimes good, sometimes not so good. And I guess some of that was innate in me. My parents were divorced when I was young, so it wasn't like I grew up around him, but I just knew that he seemed fearless in his business opportunities. And I think some of that was just innate in who I was. My husband, who also has a very high drive, he tends to be more tempered in the sense that he has a more analytical behavior. So he was good at keeping me within some boundaries. if you can possibly do
Oh,
that.
for as much as he can.
That's right. Well, he teases, he says that his behavior is he runs with the brakes on. He goes full speed, but with the brakes on. So, that has been a good combination where I will have this vision of what I want to do. And he is a realist. He's not a pessimist, but he's a realist, and he'll bring me back into, okay, well, let's look at what's the risks and what's the upside, and we'll make decisions based on that. Because we've been together as a team for so long and we've done everything as a team, he's learned to trust me on some things, but he also knows when to pull me back. Most recent adventure was buying a 40,000 square foot building and doing a complete renovation. And the building was a massive dump when we bought it. I mean, just disgusting mess dump. And he was like, I don't see the vision, but you've got the vision. And of course, now it's a beautiful building, and, it's a nice profitable opportunity. And so he's like, okay, I trust you on those decisions. So that, and, do I always make the right decisions? No. But I think when you have a great partner that you can bounce things off, or a great coach, like you were a great coach through a lot of that. And we talked about a lot, you always made me stop and think about things a different way. Right. And I think that's the key, is to find that, great partner or coach, especially a coach that can make you look through a different set of eyes, and re-inspect it. And I mean, there was many times I remember telling you that I was very angry with you because you were very mean to me in our in our conversations. Now I'm just teasing. Yeah. You pushed me to my limits sometimes. You would really, right. I thought that I had it all thought through and figured out, and then you'd ask me these questions, and man, you threw some monkey wrenches in my plans. And that's what a good coach does. And you made me look at it through a different set of eyes. And sometimes it caused me to completely change my plan, or sometimes it was just a minor tweaking of the plan.
Right. So. Well, and I think, from a coaching perspective, consultant, mentoring, whatever, phase that might be that you're in, I'm not necessarily attached to the outcome like Gary might be, or that you are. So I can see it differently without some of the emotion, yet the emotion is still there, because I wouldn't want to coach or consult or mentor somebody and give them the wrong advice or the wrong coaching and have them make the wrong decision. It's funny, over the years, whenever I've coached somebody who's going to hire somebody, I always say, I'd love to interview them before you hire them, because if I have to coach you and you hire them and it's the wrong hire, what do you think we're going to be talking about? And many times over the years, because you get so close to something, that happens. We're attached to it, and we have blinders on sometimes and we don't see it. So it's okay that, you get off the phone, you didn't like me sometimes. I'm good with that.
Well, we always, it was a love-hate relationship, mostly love, but.
Well, look at Belichick and Brady. That was a love-hate relationship, right?
Well, anybody that's ever had a coach in their life that didn't have a moment where they had a dislike for their coach for a moment because they pushed them beyond their limits or into an uncomfortable zone, then they have the wrong coach.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, I always felt like I'm somewhat uncoachable in a lot of ways, because I can talk my way, out of a paper bag. So, and sell ice to Eskimos. So most coaches I can talk my way out of. And that had been my experience in the past with coaches, is that I was able to talk my way out of the coaching session with really not getting anything out of it. And sometimes it turned out that I was coaching them, and that just wasn't for me. That was not my relationship with you. But
what a great session from Nikki, and it's a great place for us to end. I look forward to having you join us for part 2, where Nikki continues to share her entrepreneurial successes, as well as some personal challenges and how she has thrived through those personal challenges. Thanks so much for joining us today. If you've not yet subscribed, please go to your favorite podcast source and subscribe to The Success Ascent, or simply go to www.thesuccessascent, and that's ASCENT.com, thesuccessascent.com. Thanks so much for joining us today. We look forward to catching you on the next ascent.